And it is a Tuesday. Andy Scheckman will join us in the last hour of the program because I wanted to have someone that knew a little bit more about the ILA and the impact that it may have than what I know. So we'll talk to Andy later on in the program. We're going to talk about it today. Folks, most people don't realize so much of what you consume on a daily basis is not manufactured in the U.S. I know that's not a surprise to some of you going, come on, check out everybody. No, everyone doesn't know that.
We've talked about it.
And, you know, there's two elements to the longshoreman strike. There's import and there's export. So the first thing you need to know is that stuff's not going to come in. The second thing you need to know is that stuff's not going to go out. Now, the ports out on the West Coast, in California especially, are run by a different set of ILI or ILA. I said ILI, I meant I got COVID on the brain. ILA, International Longshoremen's Association, or I'm not sure what the A stands for, are run by a different union. They already made a deal last year. So now that doesn't mean that they're not going to strike. It just means that they don't have to, but they still could. But all the way from Maine to Corpus Christi, the longshoremen are on strike. Now, this is an old subject that we've been talking about this. I've been on air for 33 years, or I've been talking about it for 33 years. And that is the union man versus the non-union bricklayer, the guy that's a freelancer who lives in a right-to-work state. And I don't know. Like, Louisiana is a right-to-work state. So I don't know how the longshoremen at the Port of New Orleans, for example, how that's going to work with them. So I'll throw that out as a question because I genuinely don't know. But this is a right-to-work state. But still, we do have the ILA here, the Longshoremen Union here is. So two elements to this: what goes into ports and what goes out of the port and what comes in. We do export some stuff, so that stuff that gets exported is not going to get loaded onto the docks or onto the ships here. And the guy that's the president of the longshoremen knows that he's holding most of the cards. This, to me, brings up this age-old struggle here of the labor unions versus the man. You know, when he's out there threatening and saying that I will cripple you, I wouldn't use that kind of language. And the guy's name is, I looked it up earlier, Harold Daggett, who is the president of the International Longshoremen Association. There's a video that's going around, and already Elon reposted it, so it's got like 25 million views, so people have seen this. It'd be interesting to see what people's reaction to that is. Do they respond favorably? Do they go, yeah, the longshoremen? Now, part of his explanation, when he talks about my people were working here in COVID and they weren't staying home, he makes it sound like they were dropping dead, keeling over from they all had the flu and they were dying from it. And I'm not aware that happened. But there's so many elements to this. First of all, we have the only ports in the world that are still operating on mid-19th century technology. Again, I'm not in the business, so I don't know. Is that I think some of you out there, doesn't Tom Dolan work at the Port of Baltimore? Tom, don't you have something that you do with the port? I think one of our guys, doesn't Vincent Pittsburgh? You guys that work in the maritime industry would know more about this than I, but I was listening to Mike Parrott talk about this yesterday, and Parrott was talking about how our ports are like still in the mid-19th century. century. Like many of the ports around the world have been modernized, computerized, mechanized. There's automation systems that handle some of this. As a matter of fact, some of the guys that are out there striking are going like, no, we don't want. I saw one of the signs that said no automation. I don't know. It would put them out of a job. And again, I know this stuff from reading about it and from seeing clips from TV shows and movies where they're moving containers, very large containers, from land onto a ship or from the ship onto land. That's about the extent of my knowledge. I know that there are Customs and Border Patrol, that Customs is supposed to be inspecting what's coming in and stamping what's going out and what have you here. But here's the economics and the long and short of it. And Daggett pretty much says it in the clip. We'll play the clip. Daggett says, okay, the first week, here's what's going to happen. You guys are going to have, you're going to think, oh, what's the big deal? I don't see any, there's nothing. You longshoremen can go pound sand because the American churchmen out there won't feel this. Yeah, they will. They're just not going to feel it this week. Most automobiles that are made come into ports of call. If you're getting cars from BMW that aren't made in South Carolina or Georgia, and there are some that are, then they're coming from Germany. If you're getting Mercedes-Benz that aren't made at the Mercedes plant in Alabama, then they're probably coming from Germany. If you're getting Volkswagens that aren't made, I know there's a Volkswagen plant in the U.S. I just can't recall off the top of my head where it is. You're probably getting them, they're probably being shipped then into East Coast ports. Name your foreign car manufacturer that's not on the Asian rim. Now, this is interesting. This would then mean that Chinese stuff would still come into the ports in Los Angeles and San Diego, and I guess in San Francisco, or Oakland, Alameda, the Alameda County Port, or Seattle. Seattle's a port city. Portland, obviously, is a port city. But where would that's coming from Asia. Are European companies going to take the route around, and could the West Coast ports even handle this stuff? Remember, remember during the Corona Doom, there was also, remember the ships that were stacked up in the outside the harbor in San Diego and in Los Angeles because there was a strike. Remember when the West Coast version of the ILA struck? We all remember this is what touched off the so-called the supply chain shortage in 2021. The great supply chain shortage. Was it 2020 or 2021? I forget. In any event, stuff's not coming in, stuff's not going out. So the guys that aren't in the union that are working at the ports are also out of work. The truck drivers, you see these things all over the U.S. So one of the companies is Maersk, or Maersk, however you say it, M-A-E-R-S-K. I know that Maersk is huge here it used to be at the port of New Orleans, because there's another company, there's Maersk, there's Sea-Land, but you see these things. They take the container off the ship, and then it goes onto a rack that it basically, for a tractor-trailer setup, and it's then fastened down to the rack, and then the truck driver will haul it wherever it is supposed to go. So, you see this all over. Well, that's not going to happen now. So truck drivers are going to be out. What's that?
I was just going to say, it's going to be fixed soon. You just had a natural disaster that devastated 10 different states. They have to rebuild. You have to get lumber in. You have to get steel in. This is going to be rectified shortly. Yeah,
she's right about that. And Daggett talks about that. Your lumber, some of your lumber and your supplies come in from the East Coast, ports. You don't need a depression. But here, let me throw a curveball here. Biden said he's not going to do anything about it. Biden was asked about it. It's collective bargaining and I'm not getting involved. He will when people start squawking about it and the calls start coming in. Here's the Kamala Harris, who is the worst presidential candidate in the history. You know, I should take that back. Probably whoever ran on the know-nothing ticket back in 1860 or 1856 was probably a worse human being because of what they stood for, which was anti-Irish Catholic bigotry. That's what the new Know-Nothing Party was all about. Harris is the worst candidate. She really is. Let me just give you the optics of one thing that happened yesterday. There's a prime time. Where's Deion Sanders at when we need him? There was a prime time moment yesterday. Could have been Sunday, but certainly yesterday. A prime time moment when all the vice president has to do is act presidential. Go somewhere. It really doesn't even matter where. Supposedly, the governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, told her to stay the hell out and told Trump to stay the hell out. We don't want you campaigning in here while we're dealing with the devastation. She doesn't need the permission of the governor of the state of North Carolina. She could have gone anywhere. She could have gone to Tennessee. She could have gone to Georgia, where Trump went. Point is the opportunity's already passed now, because Trump went and she didn't, to actually go, and it doesn't even really matter. I mean, it does, but it really doesn't even matter what you do or what you say in that instance. Because at the end of the day, what really matters then is that you went. You appeared to be sympathetic to the plight of average Americans. You showed up. You brought A game. As I said, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you could screw it up, what you do or what you say. But the point is that you go out and this is an opportunity to go and look and act presidential. And she blew it. Sure, I'm just still wondering, who in the hell is running this campaign? Single cat ladies. Almost said single chicken ladies. This is single cat ladies. Unmasculine, proto-feminist, proto-members of Al-Qaeda women are running this campaign. Fingerprints are all over it yesterday. No, don't go. Go somewhere where you can tell everyone how you're emotional. So Trump goes to Georgia, shows up with Franklin Graham, a couple of members of Congress, some people that are doing direct emergency relief and stuff. And he shows up. We have the clip. We'll play it for you. He speaks for about a minute and a half, says, well, this is why we're here. This is a tragedy, of course. We're here. We've got food. We've got water. We're bringing generators in, and we are bringing tankers of gasoline. Now, I take that to mean that, as he did at Palestine, Ohio, and as he did after the great flood in the summer of 2016, when all of East Baton Rouge Parish was under 12 feet of water. Remember that? Trump actually came here when he was campaigning for the presidency. And, of course, all the leftards here in Louisiana dismissed it as just, a photo op and all that. But the people that he helped didn't, because he brought dozens and dozens and dozens of truckloads of supplies in. Found a place where they could be distributed, told people, hey, just come and take it. No strings attached. So, and the point being, Trump goes where the people are. This idea here, this is complete and total epic fail in all stages of messaging here. The Democrat Party line is he builds skyscrapers, he lives in them, he's never ever worked a day in his life, silver spoon trust fund baby. He doesn't communicate with anyone, he doesn't care about anyone else, he craps all over everyone he comes in contact with. Everyone that knows him hates him. And the only reason they stay there is because he pays them to stay there. You know the line. And then events like yesterday just completely destroy, not only do they destroy that narrative, but they destroy the reputation of the people that promulgate and promote the narrative. These people should be ruined. Or in the words of Hank Williams Jr., ruined. I was watching, let's see, who did I see say this yesterday? And I had said this, and I went, yes, exactly. By the way, our Crusader Stadium chat room is open at crusadechannel.com/chat. I see some, not talking about the International Longshoremen's talk, but about intermittent fasting and pork chops. So if you're interested in the subject here, and you want to see some of the best, one of the best, not fried, but baked pork chops, sauteed pork chops you've ever seen, then the chat room at crusadechannel.com/chat is for you. And it's delicious. And it was good, too.
I was just going to say, back on topic with Donald Trump. This is not just because he is campaigning. He has always come to the aid and rescue after a natural disaster. 9/11, for instance. He has always done charitable work. Kamala can't say the same.
No, she can't. And the other point that I would make about the optics of this, you know what she did do? She went to the headquarters of the beast. She went to FEMA HQ in Mordor on the Potomac River and gave a pep talk to the bureaucrats. And I'm going like, anyone that doesn't see the contrast here. One guy goes, now let's get to the people. Where are the people? Where are they hurting? Tell me, let's go. Let's go to give some relief. Let's go take care of the people. One guy goes to where the actual problem is, looks at the problem, says, okay, we can fix this. As a matter of fact, when Trump was there yesterday, one of the first things he says is that I've already spoken to Elon, and I've asked him, can we get Starlink receivers here so that these people can regain use of the internet, which is going to be important. They need communication in order to be able to start to search and rescue for the time being, distribution of goods and survival stuff for the time being, but ultimately to figure out how to rebuild and to communicate on it while things are put back together. So he had already called Elon Musk. This is the thing that I've always, in the 8 years we have been covering, Don John of Manhattan and now Don John of Mar-a-Lago. One of the things I admire most about him is that he's actually done and built things. He knows how. Where's Mitter Monday at when we need him? He knows why things work, and because he knows why things work, he can help when things are broken. This is important. You can't paint a more disparate or contrasting image of the two candidates than this. And when I see. And I'm trying to remember who said this yesterday, my thought was almost to put a fist in the air, go, yeah, that's exactly right. John Daniel Davidson hits this. Kamala Harris apparently can't be seen helping white people. The only thing, she can be seen helping single cat ladies kill their soon-to-be-born children. That's fine. Those white people are fine. Swifties and the like. That's okay. She could show up at Planned Parenthood clinics. She could show up at rallies to take control of my body and all. She could show up with those white people, but she can't show up where there are actually white people in need because she doesn't like them. And it comes across. She doesn't like MAGA people. She rails against them, those people, all the time. So you have. This is like a make or break moment. Today's October the 1st. Is this the October surprise? Does Vance dust waltz tonight at this debate that they're going to have? I think it's in New York City. Yeah, probably. No, yeah, he will. But you have an opportunity here, as John Daniel Davidson puts it. This is a Katrina moment for Harris. Show and act presidential. Trump doesn't even have to think about it. He just goes out and does it. And the comparison there, and I keep saying this, I don't even know how in the world is this woman even out of single digits? This ought to be like an 82 to 18 landslide. We'll talk more about it. Don't go away. Some stuff that you need to know about the International Longshoremen's Association. Average pay for a longshoreman, $81,000 per year, per annum. Now, here's what they're asking for. They want a 77% increase from 81 to 143,000 smackaroos per year. Or is it 143 or 147? 143,500. That's the average. That's what it averages out to be. So this is a significant. You see why the whoever it is, and that's the ports that pay, are going like they're doing they're giving the flipper response. And why there is why there's an impasse here, I don't know that I'd want to. 77% is a tough nut or a tough pill to swallow, as they say. But then again, I don't know when the last time they got a raise was. $81,000 for blue-collar trades, skills and trade workers is not a lot. That's today with Bidenflation. That's not a lot. That's. I don't even think that if that's the average. You know, if you're a welder, for example, you can probably knock out. You can probably, well, first of all, you're always going to have work. But if you're a welder, I imagine welders are making upwards of $25, $30 an hour, if not more, depending on the situation where they're welding. I know when you go into certain, guys that can weld underwater, that pays like $60, $70 an hour. I think one guy told me once upon a time. Guys that are what are called nuclear welders. Of course, they have welding has been automated. I don't know if you know that. They got machines now that can weld straight beads for hundreds of yards where they are needed. But they're what called nuclear welders, and that's a certification. The point being, I don't think $81,000 is a king's. That's not a king's salary, and I don't. And again, I don't know what they do. Chicken Lady in the chat room saying starting welders 100,000 plus. I think that's about right, Chicken Lady. And I would imagine that yesterday, I would imagine that people that are, we should have three levels in things like this. You should have apprentices, journeymen, and masters. An apprentice pretty much works for the love of the vocation, and that he's going to pick up a skill or a trade. And in exchange for that, he pretty much works for a stipend, if you will. A journeyman is going to, after the master says he can be a journeyman, that he's qualified to do so. A journeyman will earn a decent wage, a living wage certainly, and is pretty much guaranteed that living wage. It's not going to go away. It can't be taken from him, and he can't be kicked out. A master, obviously, is the teacher, is the sensei. It's David Carradine in Kung Fu. But the master, obviously, is at the higher chain, but he has mastered some part of that vocation. And the only people that can compete with him are other masters. So $81,000 a year does not seem to me, and especially when you know that welders. But again, I don't know what longshoremen do. The joke is that they show up and they sit in crane seats all day long doing pretty much nothing. Well, I don't know if you know anything about crane operating, but that's a skill. You have to pick very large, heavy pieces or heavy boxes up and move them from point A to point B, and drop the literally on a dime. If you're trying to drop it from the ship onto the carriage that the 18-wheeler is going to use to carry across the country, you got to pretty much put it where it's going to go, so that it snaps into place, if you will. Then you lock it down. And anyway. Just generally speaking, we're probably all on the side of the longshoremen. To a point. Okay, so Maggie is, but again, to a point. I want to play Daggett. Here, all of you need to hear this. This guy is the president of the ILA, that's the International Longshoremen's Association. Okay? And again, if I were in charge of this, I would not say that like he said it. Play the Daggett clip. I think, what is that, 15? Or it's 12. Digital media file number 12. So if you want to know what the union's position is and the cards that they think that they have, here you go. This is ILA President Harold Daggett.
But today's world, it's changing into the future. They're not making millions no more. They're making billions. And they're spending it fast as they make it. I want a piece of that for my men, because when they made their most money was during COVID. When my men had to go to work on those piers every single day, when everybody stayed home and went to work. Not my men. They died out there with the virus. We all got sick with the virus. We kept them going. From Canada to Maine to Texas, Great Lakes, Puerto Rico, now the Bahamas, everybody went to work during COVID. Nobody stayed home. Well, I want to be compensated for that. I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want. They know what I want. And if they don't, well, then I have to go into the street and we have to fight for what we rightfully deserve.
Okay, all right. I didn't see that he cut it into pieces. Play the second one. Harold Daggett. Again, ILA dude.
Let me explain something to you. These people today don't know what a strike is.
Right.
When my men hit the street...
What's a strike?
From Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down. They can't get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
All right, so there you go. You're better off making the deal today than letting this thing drag on because I'll cripple you and you have no idea. I don't know what he's talking about when he says China. China. Because the Western branch or chapters or whatever of the ILA made a deal 2 years ago. And those Western ports should be open. As a matter of fact, if you look for a map of what is supposed to be closed, the ports are supposed to be closed. It starts in Maine, makes its way all the way down the East Coast. Might be fun for you people with homeschooling children, little childrens, to give them the ILA shutdown map, because that way they will know where the ports are on the eastern seaboard. Count that as a geography lesson for today. But from Bangor, Maine, or is there one north of Bangor? Is Bath? I think Bath is north. No. So probably from Bangor, as they say, Bangor, Maine, all the way to Corpus Christi, Texas. ILA controls the longshoremen on all the ports. This is interesting. What do longshoremen actually do? Well, the term longshoreman refers to a worker involved in any on-site operation on any commercial seaport. Marine cargo transport is a massive industry, and like any professional trade, there are many different elements. In general, a longshoreman is a dock worker who is involved in loading and unloading cargo ships. I'm laughing because I'm remembering that dunce, that imbecile of a United States senator from Massachusetts. What's his? Edmund Markey. We got cargo comes in and in the cargo hold, and in the cargo hold, and I'm trying to remember what the controversy was back in 2010 or whatever, but it was a word salad before word salads were cool. In general, a longshoreman is the dock workers involved in loading and unloading of cargo ships that come in and go out of the U.S. seaports. Longshoreman is a term used to describe this trade in the United States, but this position has many names worldwide, including wharfie, stevedore, and docker. Now, I knew stevedore before I read this piece. The primary distinction twixt longshoreman jobs involves the frequency of their work. There are regulars. Longshoremen employed as a permanent full-time worker on the port, and there are casuals. The term refers to a temporary longshoreman because their position, regulars have dispatch priorities, et cetera, et cetera. Gangs, okay, then they break up into gangs. This is everything you ever wanted to know about longshoring, but was afraid to ask. When work is given on a dock, a gang usually assigns it. Doesn't this kind of sound like the mafia set this up? Doesn't it sound like they don't? Like Tony Soprano is running the show here. You know, the Italians in New York and New Jersey are in the garbage business. Who runs the ports? Is it the Italians? I don't know. So the gangs. Gangs are made up of the following types of longshoremen. Dock aloft, also known as a DA. A dock aloft is assigned to a specific piece of equipment and is responsible for providing the operator with communications and directions from the ground. The DA acts as both the eyes and the ears. I guess she's talking about the crane operator then, right? The swingman. These workers are responsible for anything that requires hands-on work. This can involve anything from working on the ship to securing cargo. There's cargo in the cargo hold. To removing pins to release cargo. Bosses. This does sound very mafioso, doesn't it? Hey, don't. Are you a longshoreman boss? I think the Sopranos, they did. One of their family businesses was longshoring, I want to say. Bosses, as the name suggests, bosses are the heads of each operation within a particular cargo gang. For example, a hatch boss makes sure the cans are removed from the ship in the right order, and dock bosses, hey, I got to go see the boss, Make sure the trucks go to the right location. There are clerks. These workers are responsible for the administrative portion of the gang's assignment. And there are lashers. Hey, lasher. Working either aboard dock ships or in the yard, lashers are responsible for securing containers and cans with metal bars. Lashing is extremely important on board the ship because without the metal bars holding them secured, containers could fall into the ocean during transport. We wouldn't want that to happen now, would we? You know, I'm reminded of that. I wish I could remember what. I can't. What movie that was from, where they were having a conversation about the guys. well, what are you gonna do? Well, hey, you guys know that we are supposed to be here, like, you know, acting all dock guy like and stuff on the docks, right? You know, the boss sent us over here. All joking aside, that is the situation that the longshoremen find themselves in. I think that they're gonna win. I think that Daggett's right. And I don't know over how many years you divvy up the 77% increase. I mean, do you do it all in one? Do you go from 81 grand to 143 when the contract is done? Or do you go from 81 on average to 91, and is it phased in over 5 years, 101 or 111, 100, and so on and so forth? I don't know. But it seems to me like the longshoremen are in a position now in a good position. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of this. We like to talk about restoring Christendom and bringing back the guilds. Well, at the end of the day, the ILA is basically a guild. Now, it's not acting like a guild. I don't see any iconography that would indicate they have a patron saint, and all guilds have patron saints. For example, the Crusade Radio Guild, our patron saint is, well, we have a patroness, Our Lady of Walsingham, and when we get kicked into high gear, our patron saint will be Saint Maximilian Kolbe, because he was a radio guy. He actually worked in broadcasting, and he worked very hard to do broadcasting. As a matter of fact, quick sidebar here, because I just saw this. This is Brendan Carr on X.com on Twitter. The FCC has just released the text of its 3-2 decision. A lot of you have been complaining about this and warning about this. It's 3-2 decision to approve a Soros-backed group's purchase of 200-plus radio stations. The Commission's decision today is unprecedented. Never before has the Commission voted to approve the transfer of a broadcast license, let alone the transfer of broadcast licenses for over 200 radio stations across more than 40 markets without following the requirements and procedures called for in federal law. And then there is the this is the dissenting statement of Brendan Carr, who is one of the two no votes. The Commission's decision today is unprecedented, and what you just heard. And yet the Commission breaks this new ground today without seeking public comment on altering our established regulations, without actually changing the rules on the books, and without seeking the feedback of other federal agencies with relevant equities. Remember when I will never forget this. You remember who said, see if someone in the Crusader Stadium chat room can remember this. Who said elections have consequences? Who said that? Do you remember who said that? Elections have consequences. Your time starts now, Roger. You know the drill. Best of luck. Who said chat room, Crusader Stadium chat room contestants? Did anyone in the YouBoob channel chat room get it? And the correct response is, who is Barack Hussein Obama? Obama said it. Remember? Well, elections have consequences, and I won. I won. I'm trying to remember the circumstance under which he said it, but he was like, hey, I won, okay? Sit down and shut up. Elections have consequences. Well, elections do have consequences, and this is one of them. The president gets to appoint the majority of the Federal Communications Commission. There are 5 board members. If a Democrat wins, he will appoint 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans. If a Republican wins, he will appoint 3 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Now, this is an awful, awful way to regulate a communication industry. To think that that people have, so that by individual parties, someone has some knowledge of the intimate details and how the broadcasting industry actually works and how it runs and what it needs, because it may actually need certain rules and regulations. For example, I know the KV Turley likes to talk about pirate radio stations, and that Mike Parrott likes to talk about pirate radio stations from time to time. But a pirate radio station is actually a threat to an FCC licensed and functioning radio station, because if you have an FCC license, you had to pay for it, number one. You have to maintain it, number two. You have to maintain certain files, like a public access file, for example. There are all sorts of things you got to do if you are an FCC regulated radio or television station, and it's very expensive. Someone that's a pirate radio station just come along and throw a transmitter up and start broadcasting. No rules, no regulations. Now, somebody, of course, the libertarians say that's a good thing. I don't think that it's the good thing that they think it to be. But in any event, there are certain things that ought to happen in a broadcast to quote, regulate radio and TV stations. Why would a Democrat know more about that than a Republican? Or why would a Republican know more about that than a Democrat? They don't.